Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1342B, and today's date is July 26, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Moment of Truth is Upon Us. Which path are we going down? Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now it looks like Trump has been all over Sessions this entire week. It looks like he's trying to push Sessions into doing his job, investigating leaks, going after those who broke laws like maybe, for unmasking, going after sanctuary cities where they shouldn't be receiving funds anymore. And it looks like Jeff Sessions is taking the first step right now, and it looks like he's starting to proceed on certain issues. One of them being the sanctuary cities. He has begun cutting funding to the sanctuary cities. And once again, this is all about the immigration plan that Obama set up, where he busts those individuals in, jumping over the border, saying, yes, now you're a U.S. citizen, or you can become a U.S. citizen, put them on a bus, send them to a sanctuary city, and these cities would receive funds from the federal government to house these individuals, get them their working papers, get them jobs, and integrate them into the country. Now, we know this had many agendas behind it. One was to blend all these people into the U.S. This was also happening out in Europe with the refugees, and this was the beginning stage to set up the globalist agenda of making everyone one and the same. The other agenda was to bring in low-paid workers, because remember, they were trying to push the TPP through, and this was going to basically bring the pay rate down to the countries around the world, and they will be allowed to work here with the salary from their country, because what they wanted all the countries to be, they wanted everyone to be on a level playing field. And we can see that this is all being reversed, and this is going to take some time. But what we've learned about Obama is that he was spying on a lot more individuals than we first thought. Now, back in May, the Foreign Intelligence Service Court, FISA, found that the National Security Agency, the NSA, under Obama, routinely violated American privacy protections while scouring through overseas intercepts, and they failed to disclose the extent of the problems until the final days before Trump was elected into his presidency. Now, there are new memos which were obtained by the American Civil Liberties Union via the Freedom of Information request, detailing even more violations that occurred during the Obama administration, which include everything from illegally surveilling people on U.S. soil to sharing unredacted documents that included unmasked names of American citizens. And we can see right now that there are more and more reports coming out through the Freedom of Information Act, and we're starting to find out that he was spying on a lot of individuals. The FBI disclosed 3 instances between 2013 and February 2014 of improper disseminations of U.S. persons' identities. So we're starting to find out that this problem was a lot worse than even what Trump was telling us. And this is going way back in time, and it looks like we were right once again, because we talked about how the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, all these different agencies, they were spying on the people, and this is exactly what was going on. And of course, remember when Obama came out and said, oh, he's going to stop this, he's going to rework this? They didn't. They continually went on spying on the American people. Now, just the other day, we talked about how Wasserman Schultz IT aides, how they were running this entire network, and they protected the data of what was really going on in the DNC. And we know that the FBI has seized a number of smashed hard drives and other computer equipment from the residence of Imran Awan. This was the IT aide of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And we've learned that Awan has been captured at the Dulles airport while attempting to flee the country. Now, while all this was happening, A1, they've been kept on the payroll of former DNC Chairman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, despite a rapidly escalating scandal that potentially involves multiple federal crimes. And the reason why they were kept on the payroll was basically to keep their mouths shut. Now, there's a list of about 30 other Democrats that had the A1s on their taxpayer-funded payroll, and we have a list of those individuals on the X22Report.com site, or if you're on YouTube, you can see that list. And I think as time goes on and as they look at these smashed hard drives and they start looking into everything that's been going on, there's going to be a lot more evidence that is pouring out. So what have we learned? We've learned that, yes, the Obama administration, they've been spying on many, many people. We see there's a problem with the DNC, that Russian hacking story. Well, that turned out to be fake, phony, and false because no one ever allowed an investigation to take place, and they are hiding things. And we're starting to see that a lot of this is starting to come out, and there's a huge investigation going on into what is happening. Now, we see that Trump's new communications director, Scaramucci, he's out there saying, listen, if there are any leaks or anything like that, I'm just going to fire everybody because, you know what, this cannot stand. Now, he's already terminated suspected leaker Michael Short because they do believe that he was leaking information, and they're looking into many others who've been leaking information. Now, since Trump has been on the back of Sessions, continually pushing him, it looks like after a week of being publicly blasted by Trump, Sessions is reportedly preparing to launch a series of investigations into leaks. And this is what Trump really wants. He wants to find out who the leakers are. He wants to find out who the individuals are that unmasked certain individuals. And I can see as we move forward that he's going to continually push Sessions into doing more and more. If you notice, he's been talking a lot about Clinton, looking into the emails, looking into what has been going on with that, looking into Ukraine, and he's pushing Sessions into investigating these things. Remember, Trump cannot investigate these things on his own. The Attorney General needs to do these things, and it looks like he's nudging him to do these things. And once again, once this information starts coming out and once these investigations go into overdrive, well, things are about to change. Hopefully we can get that far unless the deep state comes up with something else, because we can see right now they are really boxing in Trump right now. Now remember, the U.S. House of Representatives, they voted overwhelmingly on Tuesday to slap new sanctions on Russia. Now, you need to remember what is going on here, and Paul Craig Roberts, he really sums this up very nicely, because what he's saying is that Congress, they're pushing this bill for more sanctions, and it removes the power of the president to rescind the sanctions that Obama imposed. Basically what they're doing is they're putting Trump in a box. If Trump vetoes this encroachment on presidential power, Congress and the media will present the veto as an absolute proof that Trump is a Russian agent and is protecting Russia with his veto. If Trump does not veto the bill, Trump will have thrown his hand and accepted that he cannot reduce the dangerous tensions with Russia. In other words, the bill is a lose-lose for Trump. Maybe he will think of a way of getting out of this. Now, if we break this down, think about what's happening here. The legislation basically interferes with the constitutionality derived by the executive power. The current legislation seeks not only to impose sanctions that have been proposed by Congress rather than the executive, but the bill would force Trump and ostensibly any successor in the White House to go through Congress in order to repeal the sanctions. Now, because the bill will involve Russian sanctions, of course, Trump has a very difficult situation, because if he goes ahead and he vetoes this bill, well, guess what? He's going to have to take the heat, and the corporate media is going to be all over him. Now, if he does go ahead with these sanctions, Europe has already said, listen, we don't want these sanctions, and we're going to retaliate. So he's going to lose Europe. Think about businesses in the United States. This hurts many, many businesses and jobs around the world. And if these sanctions go forward, well, there are certain companies like BP, ExxonMobil, General Electric, Boeing, Citigroup, MasterCard, Dow Chemical, Ford, International Paper, and many others are saying that this is going to hurt their business and this is going to be tough on Trump. So he has a very big decision coming up, and he has to look at both sides here, and I think taking the heat from the corporate media is his best choice at this point, because again, Russia has done nothing wrong. There's no reason to sanction Russia, and this is part of the old regime where Russia is the bad guy, and we're going to have to see how this whole thing plays out. Now, we understand that the deep state, the central bankers, those who want globalism, well, they were trying to control the people, and they've been trying to take weapons away from the people for a very long time. And we know that there are many agencies within the government that do business all over the world, and they give individuals weapons. And we can see with Fast and Furious, and we could see with the CIA and many other agencies where they've done this. Now, the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, created a fake federal agency and obtained $1.2 million worth of former Defense Department hardware, including military-grade weapons, at no cost. This is a new report that came out from the GAO. What they're saying is the Pentagon, they didn't do any verification. They didn't visit the location, and most of the communication was by email. This is coming from Zena Merritt, the director of GAO, the Government Accountability Office. And they're saying that they ran this operation and they played the whole thing out. They're saying like it was like getting stuff off of eBay. That's how easy it was. Now think about when you have to go get a weapon, all the checks and the waiting period and what you have to go through, and look how easy it was to get military grade weapons. I mean, the GAO is saying it was so easy it was like getting it from eBay. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Now, we're getting reports from the corporate media that North Korea is getting ready to launch an ICBM maybe tonight. And again, they can launch a missile. First of all, they don't even know if it's an ICBM. The last missile launch was not an ICBM. Of course, the corporate media is sticking to that story. Maybe months down the line, they'll correct it and say, yeah, we figured out it wasn't an ICBM. But we know from Russia, we know from the South Korean intelligence agency, they already reported, they already tracked the missile, and it turns out that it was not an ICBM. I don't think North Korea has the technology to create an ICBM type of missile system. Yes, I think they do have medium-range missiles, but I don't think they are there yet. They're trying to play this up and bring this to the next level because we know exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to push this into a war. And they keep saying that North Korea is going to launch a missile, they're going to launch a missile. Many countries, well, they launch missiles. We know that Kim Jong-un is not crazy. We already had a report coming out of the Pentagon saying that, no, he's doing all of this to protect his country. He knows that nuclear weapons is a deterrent for regime change. So this is not really a crazy man who's going to launch missiles into the United States. And a lot of these stories that are coming out from North Korea, are they really coming out from North Korea? Because we've seen so much fake news where they just make up anything. I mean, look at all the Russian stories. And they all turned out to be nothing burgers. They were all fake. Even the memo from Comey, which no one has ever seen still. Again, fake. It is all fake. Now, we see out in Venezuela, we see the country's senior leadership. Well, they've accused Senator Marco Rubio and CIA Director Mike Pompeo of conspiring to overthrow the country's government and replace it with a puppet regime. And at this point, I'm going to have to agree with this. I don't know if Rubio is involved in this, but we know that CIA does this very often. And we know that Rubio is involved in all of this. And Pompeo admitted that the U.S. would like to see regime change in Venezuela. They would like to see regime change in North Korea. They would like to see regime change in Syria and many other countries. Because the deep state, they are into empire building, and the way you build empires is to remove the leaders of these countries, replace them with a puppet regime, and you make sure that you can control this country. And this is what they've been doing over a long period of time. Now, Trump is out there and he's saying, listen, the Lebanese army is the only defender of Lebanon. The U.S. is not going into Lebanon. We're not going to have the coalition forces going into Lebanon. Let Lebanon take care of itself. He said this about Libya. He says this about Lebanon. And we can see what's happening in Syria, where basically he stopped the funding to the moderate rebels. The funding is not coming in for the terrorists right now. And we can see that the Russian forces, the Syrian forces, they have been decimating the terrorist groups. Now, the Western media, which is the mouthpiece for the deep state, they're just continually spreading fake news all over the place. Right now, the Western fake news, they're saying that the Russian military struck Syria's East Ghouta safe zone. And Russia is saying absolutely not. There were no strikes on July 24th. Nothing like this happened whatsoever. Please show us your proof. And once again, the corporate media, they don't have any proof to show. They're just putting this stuff out there because what they're trying to do is they're continually trying to demonize Russia. Now, Syria and Russia, they have allegedly released an ultimatum in this Eastern Ghouta area where they're saying, listen, the moderate rebels, you need to separate yourselves from Al-Qaeda, Al-Sham, Al-Nusra. We need to see a separation because basically what's happening here is that Syria and Russia, they are going into this area. And if they do not separate themselves, everyone is up for an attack. So there's about 9,000 militants that are in this area, and they want them to start separating themselves of who is moderate rebel and who are the terrorists. Now, we're going to have to see how this plays out because, once again, we'll have to see how they separate themselves because really they're one and the same. Now, are they all going to say we're moderate rebels? Are they going to really split themselves into two? I think Syria and Russia are just going to go in there and clean house and get rid of all these terrorist groups. They already know that these groups are one and the same. And of course, they're giving them this warning first, and eventually what's going to happen is they're going to come in and they're going to push through and take back the entire area. And we can see why the Western media was coming up with this fake news about them, firing into this safe zone area because they can see what is about to happen. They're about to go into this area, and this is why they've been pushing the idea that this is happening. Now, the Syrian Tiger forces, they're plowing through the Islamic State through southern Raqqa. They liberated several strategic sites, and they're continually moving eastward in Syria right now. And we can see at this point that we are coming up to a crossroads, especially with Trump, because he's going to have to decide what he's going to do. Because at this point, he might as well say, listen, I'm going to have to take the heat. We're going to have to go after the leakers, the unmaskers. We're going to have to stop the wars in the Middle East, and we can't place sanctions on Russia because he has this huge decision. So what path is he going to take? Because he can take the path that leads down the road with the neocons, with the deep state and the central bankers, or he can take the path to say, okay, we're not going to send troops. So far, he hasn't sent any troops to Afghanistan. He wants to have a meeting. He wants to have an investigation of what we've been doing in Afghanistan for 17 years. The Syrian opposition, they're not receiving funding anymore, and he's going to have to make major decisions coming up very soon. And I think he's reaching the point right now where he's going to have to decide which path he's going to go down because he can't play both sides anymore. It's time to take off the gloves and make a decision of what you're going to do. Are you going to go and say, listen, Russia, they are our allies. We're not doing sanctions. We're not following through on this. We're starting the investigation into all of these things. Sessions, as he continually nudges him to do this, we can see he's trying to push down this way. And I think at this point in time, no matter what the corporate media says, no matter what the deep state says, we need to head down this path where it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter about Russian collusion. It's about bringing world peace. It's about bringing us through this transition. It's about bringing us to the other side. It's about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. So let's see which path he brings us down, because he has decisions to make, and it all depends on his decisions. Now, he could bring us down the path of the deep state. He might still go with Russian sanctions, and this is not going to help the situation whatsoever. I think he should just bite the bullet and say, listen, no sanctions. We're investigating. Everyone better start hiding, because here we come. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.